Skeleton Crew is over, or at least what I hope is simply the first season of Skeleton Crew. My fingers are firmly crossed for more because I absolutely adored this series. I would place it right up there with Andor. I have to admit, it took until the 4th episode for me to be hooked all the way, but to me, this story was like a roller coaster. Those first 3 episodes were like riding the hill to the top. I was enjoying myself, but the ride didn't truly begin until the whole cast was assembled and they had some directions from Kim. But a roller coaster simply cannot exist without the hill at the start. You have to spend that time climbing the hill so you can build relationships and set up plot points, and then you can go nuts with twists and turns and loop-de-loops because of the time spent setting up a foundation. Now I'm remembering there are roller coasters that use magnets to shoot you out at high speeds, so it's not a perfect analogy, but still, you get what I mean. When I took improv lessons, our teachers taught us about setting a platform for characters. Who are they? Where are they? What are they doing? Who are they to each other? The more time you spend building those elements, the more you have to work with in both comedy and drama. Skeleton Crew built a fantastic platform that I think I simply didn't see at the time. I need to rewatch the opening episodes because I think I'll fully grasp it all now. For example, one of my criticisms of the first 5 episodes is that we didn't spend enough time with KB. I had a solid understanding of what each kid wanted and what their arc would be, except for her. Then when we got to episode 6, it all clicked into place. She wasn't very vocal about her issues because she was scared to share them. I was also expecting her issues to stem from her parents, like Wim and Fern, but no, her arc was about her friendship, specifically with Fern, and knowing that, I can already remember moments and little looks where you can feel that tension. I do still think there could have been an early line about her Augs, but I also have to admit that the story didn't need that, because episode 6 was one of my favorites of the season. It worked perfectly fine without any other setup. Okay, that's enough time spent explaining how and why I was wrong to not think the first third of the series was amazing. I do still think Skeleton Crew plays out like a very long movie, more than a classic television show, but that's just the nature of streaming now. And it was a very good long movie, so I don't care. I know the initial pitch was for this story to be a film, but now that we've seen it as a series, I'm grateful it came out this way. Obi-Wan Kenobi was also originally meant to be a movie, but then it became a series, and some episodes felt a little padded to add extra time. Skeleton Crew did not feel that way. It seemed like it was worthy of the additional runtime and never wasted a second. I think it would have made for a very fun movie, but I would be afraid cutting the runtime in half would have meant losing some of the quieter character moments, like Wim and KB together on Lanupa, and that is one of the core scenes of the story to me. And the kid actors crushed that scene. Not just that moment, but I was impressed with them the whole way through. Ravi, Robert, Ryan, and Kiriana all played believable children that made choices kids would make without ever coming off as annoying, in my opinion. Or at least Wim was annoying in the way that he was supposed to be early on. He was making selfish decisions, but that's what kids do. Hell, I still make stupid, impulsive decisions sometimes. Who's to say I wouldn't have pushed that green button in a moment of weakness and caused the same mess? I also loved how well the writing weaved little kid logic into the story, like Fern calling unclaimsies on the ship and that working well enough for SM-33 and the pirate code. That could have come off as cheesy, but the overall tone and direction of the series was so well established that to me, it fit perfectly. And that's a testament to the entire production team. It seemed like everyone was firing on all cylinders for this. The writing, directing, and acting were all fantastic, but so were the puppeteering and the visual effects and the animatronics and Mick Giacchino's score and the matte paintings and the stop motion. This series seemed like a celebration of everything that has made Star Wars stand out over the decades. Yes, it's a franchise that always placed cutting-edge visual effects at the forefront. And yes, the volume was used in Skeleton Crew, but outside of a couple shots, I think it's looked far better here than it has for other shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Port Borgo and Kim's Moon were awesome environments, but I also loved that Skeleton Crew didn't completely rely on that one tool for everything. The team used matte paintings for some shots of At-Atten. They brought Tippett Studios in for the stop-motion crab. Kim and SM-33 were wonderfully performed puppets. Neil was a mixture of live action, facial capture, CGI, and animatronics, and it is wild to me how much expression they got from Neil. A character whose mouth you can almost never see could have been risky, but those eyes had a surprising amount of emotion behind them at times. It's fitting that a series about kids learning to work together as a crew had a behind-the-scenes crew that came together to produce something so great. Looking at the story as a whole, I love all the major themes that were explored for the kids and the adults. I actually would not have minded more about the adult characters. I always loved checking in with them in their amateur attempts at outwitting the security droids, cobbling together a device, and having a relay race to get a message to their kids, each one of them doing their small part to help. I think we could have learned a little bit more about the barrier early on, because I already love Farrah's hesitance to destroy it and everything that stood for, but I think the moment could have landed a little harder if we knew how scared she was of the rest of the galaxy in the first few episodes. But the scene still worked for me, and it's this wonderful moment where, yes, the walls come down, and it's scary opening yourself up to the rest of the galaxy, but the people of At-Aten can also see all the beauty they've been missing for hundreds of years. Fern telling her mom that, yes, there are scary people out there, but there are also lots of good people, wrapped up the rest of the series and all those characters we met incredibly well. Farrah needed to start looking at the galaxy with some childlike optimism again, and Wendell had to learn to have some fun and use his imagination instead of being a corporate drone all about business and his supervisor meetings. Bringing him on the hoverbike chase was fantastic. I loved the adult stories, and they weren't even the focus. Obviously, the kids were, and their journey was even better. I've said many times before that I'm a sucker for stories about best friends becoming best friends. Poe and Finn escaping the Finalizer is one of the first scenes I think about when the sequel trilogy comes to mind. And here we got 8 episodes of that journey. I love the choice to have them start out as 2 competitive groups of boys versus girls who have to each grow in their own way to become better versions of themselves and better friends. I'm having a tough time choosing between episodes 6 and 8 as my favorite of the season, because 6 was that moment where they become the skeleton crew of the Onyx Cinder, and the visual representation of the ship shedding its pirate armor, a symbol of a selfish and greedy life, to become something sleek and beautiful, was awesome. I love the nuance of those journeys too. For example, Fern has to learn to better understand KB. It's not that Fern is simply a bad and selfish friend. I actually think she has very good instincts to try and treat KB the same she always did before her accident, but there is a reality she wasn't acknowledging and accepting. And KB's Augs likewise aren't treated as just this hindrance that make her different. They do have limitations, and they do mean there are some things she can't do, but they also mean there are some things that only she can do. Things that make the rest of her friends watch her with awe. Of the 4 kids, I think Wim had the best and most dramatic arc. He always had a good heart. He wanted to help people and be a Jedi. To him, that meant seeking out something exciting and kicking down the door with a lightsaber in hand to defeat the villain and save the day. But when he actually gets to do that, he drops the ball in a moment that was both hilarious and heartbreaking because we knew how much that meant to him. But the very next episode, he saves KB's life without even realizing it. KB points out he probably thought saving someone's life would be more exciting because sitting in the dirt, listening, and following directions isn't what he imagined as heroic. But it was heroic, and I love that she called him a Jedi. Throughout the rest of the story, he never loses the whimsical imagination that he was probably named for, but he doesn't let it control him. He wields it as a weapon against Jod. And speaking of Jod, I've barely mentioned him or Jude Law yet in this review, but man, he was great. We are trained in Star Wars to expect a redemption arc. Han Solo is a little rough around the edges, but he's a scoundrel with a heart of gold. I thought for sure Jod would be a pirate that learned to love the kids and help them out, and Jude Law is so charming that even when he was doing questionable things, and even when characters kept telling the kids and the audience not to trust him, I was like, yeah, he's not trustworthy now, but don't worry, he'll get better when the time is right. What do you know, Catholips? But in those last 4 episodes, he just kept getting worse and worse, and it was kind of awesome to see. I wasn't happy he was being mean to the kids, but it just felt like interesting territory for Star Wars that also still leaves that door open. I don't think Jod is beyond redemption. I don't think he's pure evil, and if this story continues, I think it would be kind of awesome to see him learn to be better, but slowly. Maybe he makes some good decisions and then backslides a bit. He helps some people in one episode and then steals from some people in another. I think that could be fun. He'd probably get along really well with someone like Dr. Aphra. His ending was a little more ambiguous than I would have liked. I can assume he'll wind up in a New Republic prison somewhere, but thematically, I thought his story ended wonderfully. He played well against Wim, who of course wanted to believe Jod was a Jedi, which fits with Wim's journey of learning what it actually means to be a Jedi. But of course, Jod had to struggle between the value of credits versus connection. I think he longs for connection. I believe him when he says he's lonely. He wants his pirate crew to love him, but he has to buy that love. love, and his love of credits is always contrasted by the love of family and friends, and of course the power of connection ultimately defeats him. It's wild that you can literally say that the real treasure is the friends we made along the way, and it doesn't feel cheesy to me. It's real and honest and works perfectly in this series. Jod acts like no one will help other people unless there's something in it for them, but maybe seeing the New Republic swoop in to save At-Aten helped him realize he was wrong. I also want to shout out some of the side characters, especially Pocket. She is easily my favorite side character for this series. The character design, the voice, Kelly Macdonald's performance, everything about her screamed Star Wars to me as if she has always been a part of this universe. She felt like she belonged, and I could absolutely see her appearing in future Mandoverse stories or comics or anything. She was rad. Kim was another standout. Again, great design, great puppetry, great voice acting from Aaliyah Shawkat. But yeah, I could go on praising this show for a long time. I'm still riding high off of it, but I would currently list it as one of my favorite things Disney has done since it bought Star Wars. I know there are ideas for a second season that would account for the kids' ages. I hope we get to see them and Jod again, either in Skeleton Crew Season 2 or in another Mandoverse series. If the kids are aging up anyway, I think that means the in-between years would be perfect for like some middle grade books or maybe a comic. I've also thrown out the idea that I think a TAC rented comic could be a fun miniseries. I see a lot of potential for the expansion of this corner of the Star Wars universe. I know the viewership wasn't as high as other series, but hopefully we see an uptick now that it's all done and people can binge watch it and word of mouth spreads. If a second season isn't in the cards, I'd also be happy to just bring back this same team. Give John Watts and Christopher Ford and their team a new project because I think they've got great Star Wars instincts. But I'm going to wrap up for now. In short, great show, want more, give me more. Skeleton Crew was well written, well crafted, well acted, and just all around awesome. Let me know what you thought of the season in the comments. If you're one of our patrons, you can check out more Skeleton Crew content with our reactions and watch-alongs, which are all out now. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more Star Wars videos, and follow us on our socials. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.